There is a person in your life who irritates you beyond reason. Maybe it is someone arrogant, someone who brags constantly, who needs to be the center of every room, who cannot stop talking about themselves. Or maybe it is someone lazy, someone who avoids responsibility, who makes excuses, who refuses to do the hard thing. Or maybe it is someone dishonest, someone who manipulates, who plays the victim, who twists the truth for their own convenience. You know exactly who I am describing. The face came to you immediately, and the irritation came with it. But here is the question Carl Jung spent his life asking: what if the intensity of that irritation is not really about them? What if the person who enrages you most is holding up a mirror, and what you cannot stand in the reflection is yourself? Carl Jung called it the shadow, not the darkness you are aware of, not the flaws you admit to and laugh about over dinner, the darkness you cannot see because you buried it so deep, so early, that you no longer remember it is there. Jung wrote, "The shadow is the person you would rather not be, not the person others see as bad, the person you have decided is unacceptable, the parts of yourself that were punished, shamed, or rejected in childhood and so were hidden away, never destroyed, never dissolved, simply driven underground where they continue to live, to grow, and to shape everything you do without your conscious knowledge." To understand the shadow, you have to understand how it is formed. You were not born with a shadow. You were born whole, every emotion, every impulse, every capacity available to you. The rage, the tenderness, the selfishness, the generosity, the sexuality, the violence, the creativity, all of it present, all of it yours. Then the world began to teach you which parts of yourself were acceptable and which were not. Your mother's face when you cried too long, your father's silence when you showed weakness, the teacher who shamed you for speaking out of turn, the classroom that laughed when you showed too much excitement. Slowly, quietly, you learned. You learned which emotions were safe to feel and which had to be hidden, which parts of you made people love you and which parts made them withdraw. And so you began to edit yourself, to cut away the unacceptable, to present only the version of yourself that kept you safe, loved, and belonging. Jung called this the persona, the mask you wear in public, the curated self, the performance of acceptability, and everything that didn't fit the mask went somewhere else, into the shadow. Here is what makes the shadow so powerful and so dangerous. It does not disappear because you ignored it. Jung used an image that stays with you. The shadow is like a bag you drag behind you through life. Everything you ever decided was unacceptable about yourself goes into the bag. The rage you were told was wrong, the ambition you were told was arrogance, the sexuality you were told was shameful, the neediness you were told was weakness, the grief you were told was self-pity. All of it in the bag, dragged behind you everywhere you go, getting heavier every year. And here is the thing about a bag you carry without knowing: it shapes your posture. It determines how far you can go. It exhausts you in ways you cannot explain. But the shadow does something even more insidious than simply weighing you down. It projects. When a quality in yourself becomes too threatening to acknowledge, when the bag becomes too full of a particular thing, the psyche finds a release valve. It projects that quality outward, onto other people, and suddenly you don't carry the rage. You see it in the man who cut you off in traffic. You don't carry the arrogance. You see it in your colleague, who you cannot stand. You don't carry the laziness. You see it in your partner who never does enough. The psychological mechanism is elegant and cruel. By seeing our unacceptable qualities in others, by judging, criticizing, and condemning them, we keep the illusion alive that those qualities belong to someone else, not to us, never to us. Jung gave us a way to test this. He said, "Pay attention to the intensity of your reactions. Not all irritation is projection. Sometimes a person is genuinely unkind. Sometimes a behavior is objectively problematic. But when your reaction is disproportionate, when someone triggers in you a rage or contempt that far exceeds what the situation warrants, that is the signal. The excess emotion is the shadow speaking. Think about the last time someone annoyed you far more than they should have. the colleague who takes credit for others' work, the friend who always makes everything about themselves, the person on social media performing their virtue. If your reaction was calm and proportionate, probably not projection. But if something in you ignited, if you found yourself thinking about it hours later, replaying what you should have said, feeling a contempt that surprised even you, then the question worth asking is, where in my own life do I do what I cannot stand watching them do? Not in the same way, not to the same degree, but somewhere, in some form. This is the part that is genuinely difficult to hear. The person who cannot tolerate arrogance in others is often carrying profound, unexpressed ambition that was shamed into silence years ago. They buried the desire to be seen, to be great, to be recognized because somewhere they learned that wanting those things was wrong. And now they rage at anyone who wants them openly, not at the arrogance itself, at the freedom of it. At the permission the arrogant person seems to have given themselves, the very permission our shadow carrier was never allowed to take. The person who cannot tolerate weakness in others is often carrying tremendous unexpressed vulnerability that they learn to seal over with performance and achievement. They despise the person who cries, who asks for help, who admits they can't cope because that person is doing what they have never allowed themselves to do. The person who cannot tolerate dishonesty in others sometimes cannot acknowledge the ways they lie to themselves daily, the stories they maintain, the truths they avoid, the comfortable fictions that protect them from what they know. This is not an accusation. This is the structure of the human psyche. None of us escape it. The shadow does not mean you are a hypocrite. It means you are human. Jung called this mechanism projection, but he also called it one of the most important sources of self-knowledge available to us. Because your projections are a map. Every person who triggers an irrational response in you is pointing directly at something in your shadow, not because they are your teacher, not because they did something for you, but because your psyche, desperate to be seen, desperate to be whole, is using them as a mirror. The question is whether you will look. Most people don't. It is far more comfortable to simply dislike the person, to build a case against them, to recruit friends to your side, to confirm, through consensus, that the problem is definitively theirs. Jung called this the refusal to withdraw the projection, and he believed it is one of the primary causes of conflict in relationships, in communities, in nations. When we cannot see our shadow, we find it in the other. And then we fight the other to the death over something that was, all along, inside us. This is not abstract psychology. This is the mechanism behind every war. The nation that cannot acknowledge its own capacity for violence sees only the violence of its enemies. The group that cannot acknowledge its own hunger for power sees only the power hunger of the other group. The ideology that cannot acknowledge its own potential for cruelty sees cruelty everywhere except in the mirror. Jung wrote after World War II, the most dangerous person in the world is the one who has no access to their own evil, not the person who acknowledges their darkness and struggles with it. The person who is completely certain they have none, who has displaced every dark impulse so thoroughly onto others that they feel entirely righteous in whatever they do. History is littered with the consequences of unexamined shadows wielding power in the name of righteousness. This is not distant history. This is the news cycle. This is the comment section. This is the argument at the dinner table. So what do you do with this? Jung's answer was not comfortable. He did not say, accept your shadow and everything will be fine. He said, integrate your shadow, and that is the work of a lifetime. Integration does not mean acting on every impulse you've suppressed. It does not mean expressing every rage, every desire, every darkness. It means acknowledging that these things exist within you, bringing them from the unconscious into consciousness, removing their power to drive you without your knowledge. Because what you cannot see, you cannot choose, and what you cannot choose runs you. The first step is the one nobody wants to take. Stop. When you feel that disproportionate reaction, stop. Not to suppress it, not to analyze it away, but to ask the question beneath it. What is this really about? Where do I do this? What in me is being triggered not by who this person is, but by who they are allowing themselves to be, that I have never allowed myself to be? This question requires honesty of a kind that most people never practice. Not the honesty of admitting small flaws, the honesty of looking at the darker places, the ambition you called selfishness and buried, the anger you called dangerous and sealed away, the desire you called shameful and locked in the dark. These are not your worst qualities. They are your most alive qualities, driven underground by fear and shame, waiting to be reclaimed. Jung used the term reclamation for this. Not defeat of the shadow, not elimination of the shadow, reclamation, the return of exiled parts of the self. The person who reclaims their buried ambition doesn't become arrogant, they become directed. The person who reclaims their buried vulnerability doesn't become weak, they become capable of genuine intimacy. The person who reclaims their buried anger doesn't become violent, they become someone who can say no, who can draw a boundary, who can protect what matters to them. The shadow is not your enemy, it is the part of you that got left behind, and it has been waiting sometimes for decades for you to come back. There is a paradox at the heart of shadow work that Jung found endlessly fascinating. The more morally certain a person appears, the more righteous, the more rigid, the more convinced of their own goodness, the larger their unexamined shadow tends to be. Because the construction of a perfect persona requires an equally large quantity of rejected material. You cannot build a flawless surface without an enormous amount of material that didn't pass the cut. This is why the most judgmental people are often the most secretly tormented, why the loudest moral voices sometimes fall the hardest, why the person most certain of their virtue is sometimes the most dangerous in a room, not because virtue is a lie, but because virtue built on repression is a dam, not a character, and dams eventually break. Jung believed the truly mature person is not the one with the smallest shadow, but the one with the most honest relationship to it. There is one more dimension of the shadow that Jung considered perhaps the most important. He called it the golden shadow. Not all of what we project onto others is dark. Sometimes we project our unlived greatness, the person we idolize beyond reason, the artist whose work moves us to a grief we can't explain, the leader who inspires in us a devotion that surprises us, the stranger whose confidence we cannot stop thinking about. When admiration becomes obsession, when someone's excellence triggers in us not just appreciation but ache, that ache is the golden shadow speaking. It is the part of you that knows you are capable of what you see in them, that carries the unlived potential, the unwritten book, the uncreated work, the unrealized version of yourself that you have been too afraid to pursue. The golden shadow is perhaps even more frightening than the dark one, because it does not ask you to face your flaws, it asks you to face your greatness, and that is a heavier burden than most people are willing to carry. Jung had a phrase that I want to leave you with. He said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, not by pretending you are only light, not by performing goodness so thoroughly that you lose contact with everything else, by making the darkness conscious, by turning toward it, by asking it what it needs, what it carries, what it knows. The shadow is not your enemy. It is the most honest part of you, the part that never learned to perform, never learned to edit, never learned to be acceptable. It is the wild, unmanaged, rejected remainder of everything you are. And it has been waiting in the dark, in the bag, in the irritation you felt today, looking at a person who had nothing to do with it, waiting for you to finally turn around and say, "I see you. I know you are mine. Come home." The person who irritated you, look at them one more time, not with contempt, not with the story you have built about them, with curiosity. What is it, exactly, that you cannot stand? Name it precisely, and then before you look away, ask yourself, where does that live in me? Not as punishment, not as self-condemnation, as the beginning of something that most people never start. The examined life, the life in which you are finally, honestly acquainted with yourself, all of yourself. 3 seconds of silence. This is the examined life. If this reached something in you, share it. Subscribe, and we'll see you in the next examination.